He was on the ringway, called it Fidelity Discount House. Through dint of hard work, perseverance, he sets up a bank, Fidelity Bank. Today, if you look at the list, I can show it to you again. Fidelity Bank has been involved in most of the analysis of the Eurobond support for government. Fidelity Bank has earned money from it. Edward Effah is qualified to be the Minister of Finance any day. He's qualified to be a governor of the Bank of Ghana anytime. Should we, when it becomes that Edward Effah is now being appointed Minister of Finance in Ghana, that Fidelity Bank should stop doing what they have already been doing, about which they are chosen by a regular criteria? The TV is gone off. Is that what we should be saying? Should we say that? Should we say that we can't have the skill set of Edward Effah at the Ministry of Finance or at the Bank of Ghana because Fidelity Bank? Now, if Edward Effah knows that if I take up this job as governor of the Bank of Ghana or as Minister of Finance, Fidelity can no longer do this work, he's more likely not to take up the job. And that will bring me to what Lee Kuan Yew said. Edward Effah will say, I don't want the job because I want my business. So is that what you, I mean, that's the narrative. And if Edward Effah is Minister of Finance and Fidelity Bank are participating in Eurobond and earning money for it, then I come and sit on TV and said, Edward Effah, look at, anytime Ghana borrows money, Edward Effah makes money. And his children will come and say, some other children don't have property. And it's not because that on papaye crown for. I mean, we can't use words like that in a civilized society where there's data everywhere, there's freedom of information, people know people, you can ask people. We shouldn't do that. Even though this brings us to a bigger narrative of what we want as a country, and I'll be setting that out in terms of the laws. This is the real narrative. Okay, Edward Effah might say that, well, I've lived my life, I'm good, I'm not interested in politics, I'm gone, I'm not interested. Young man, David Ewadako, this guy came from abroad. He has a family business. His family business is insurance. Vanguard Insurance is family business. He could have easily walked into Vanguard Insurance to continue his work. He studied at Oxford. Great guy. He could have said, I'm going to Vanguard Insurance. No, he didn't do that. He went on the street and set up IC Securities. He called a few friends of his, friends that he had known for long, at the same age as him. And they set up IC Securities. Everyone in the industry began to admire them. That, oh, IC Securities, no, they are the place to go. They are serious people. People were sending their children there for internship. And I know a few friends of mine who've sent their children to IC Securities for internship. And this is David Ewadako. IC Securities has been doing Eurobond, as you will see in the list, from 2015, 2016. If tomorrow he becomes a Deputy Minister of Finance, or a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, or a president comes and says, I think I need somebody like David at the Bank of Ghana. So I'm going to make David a Deputy Governor at the Bank of Ghana. And David goes to the Bank of Ghana as Deputy Governor. Should IC Securities close down and stop doing the government business and send the people home? Are they not Ghanaians? They should send them home because he has become this. I agree with KKD. People cannot take up government and set up a company. You can't do that. That I agree with. You can't set up a company. But the references that he's making is to people whose companies have not been set up today. They have been doing that work already. So I come and sit on TV and say, David Ewadako, I'm older than him, small boy. He came from nowhere. Now he's Minister of Finance and his securities, IC Securities are doing this and that. That's not analysis. That's envy. I'm sorry to say, that's not analysis. That's pure jealousy, envy, and it's foolishness. I'm sorry to say. I shouldn't be able to come and talk about David Ewadako and say that, hey, oh, you're crown for. No. We shouldn't do that. We have to deal with the facts. And we have to discuss as a country. What is the context of conflict of interest? To what extent are we going to have the conflict of interest? And to what extent can we tolerate it? And to what extent can we get it out? It's a decision for all of us to make. But we can't call people who have worked hard for their company and happen to come into government because they want to get things right. They may not get things right. They may get it wrong. They may get it half right. But they took a decision to put their files down in private sector and walk into government empty-handed. Now, a company that has been doing that work, if I'm MD of Data Bank and Kenneth Fuata calls me and says that, Chief, we are doing Eurobond, but because I'm Minister of Finance, you cannot participate. I will beat him up. I cannot participate because you are Minister of Finance. You've put my destiny in your hand. You've called me to become MD of Data Bank. Who is MD of Data Bank? Professor Adama Mensah's son, what's his name? Kojo Adama Mensah. He's MD of Data Bank. He's a guy who was doing his banking business. Adama Mensah has been in banking and has been a successful banker where he was, Standard Chartered. Then they brought him to Data Bank. They poached him to come and lead Data Bank. He came to lead Data Bank before Ofori-Atta became Minister of Finance. So Ofori-Atta becomes Minister of Finance, calls Kojo Adama Mensah and says that, Chief, I'm Minister of Finance, so you cannot participate in the government bond anymore, which is their biggest business that they look forward to every year. You tell him that, he will walk away. What are you telling the people that you have employed at Data Bank? That because you have become Minister of Finance, if that's what we want as a country, we should say so. That once you become minister, you can no longer do any business at all, even with the company that was already doing the same kind of business. We should say that. If we say that, what we're going to have is that David Ewuo will never get into government. But I tell you, we need David Ewuo in government. Whether it's MPP government, NDC government, you need people like David Ewuo with a share scope of their exposure. Just that is good enough. We need people like David Ewuo in government. We need people like Edward Effah in government. Not just Edward Effah has been advising a lot of government. NDC MPP has been advising them. We don't just need him as an advisor. If we can, we need him inside the government. We need people like Togbe Afede in government. Togbe Afede was on the board of Bank of Ghana. A lot happened there. He had been chairman of NIB, the longest chairman of NIB. I believe a lot of good things happened there too. But we need people like him in government. And so he comes to government and his main company, Togbe Afede came from America, set up Data Bank, left Data Bank, set up Strategic African Securities. That's the only job he's been doing. Strategic African Securities is his only job he's been doing. The main one, well, Hearts of Oak is not a job, it's a charity, isn't it? Because I'm not sure he makes money from Hearts of Oak. It's out of the money he makes from SAS that he's been able to make Hearts of Oak what it is. And so he should stop. Become Minister of Finance. So John Mahama becomes president and says, Togbe Afede, come and be the governor of the central bank. And that means SAS closes down. I mean, really, is that what we want to say? Okay, let me move to the next because I hear I've done 25 minutes already. Quick, what's the next agenda? Okay, so we do have a good example. Put up Kwabena Dufour's photographs here, let's see. This is Kwabena Dufour, finance minister, who in the history of the Fourth Republic was the first finance minister to achieve single-digit inflation. We know that. That's Dufour's record. You can't do anything about that. It is a record for, it's not a record for MPP. It's a record for Dr. Dufour and Professor Mills. They first achieved single-digit inflation. Dr. Dufour came to the job already having a bank, Unibank, and an insurance company, Star Assurance. Now, both of these companies and both of this category of companies, banking and insurance, work directly to the Minister of Finance. He used to be the deputy governor of the central bank. Then he became governor of the central bank. He went on retirement, and Professor Mills called him from retirement. Now, when Professor Mills and Captain Chikata wanted to bring Kwabena Dufour into government because they were taking over from Kufuor's administration. And the whole conversation had been that Kufuor had done a great job with the economy with Ban Radio, Osafo Maafo, and Akuto Osei, and that the NDC coming into government, they should be careful that they're able to sustain the economy. That was a concern of many international observers when the NDC won the 2009 election, whether they will be able to sustain the economy. So many people in NDC who were active NDC members were looking for the job. Dr. Dufour was not an active NDC member. In fact, some people even called him CPP. But they brought him in. Professor Mills said, Kwabena, I need you to come and do this for me because taking over from Kufuor, I need somebody like you who understands it. He came in and he achieved single-digit inflation. He had a bank called Unibank. If Dr. Dufour had been told that once you become finance minister, Unibank cannot do any business with government, maybe he wouldn't have come. But Unibank did a lot of business with government. And it came to pass that when government owed contractors, Kwabena Dufour's Unibank will pay them. There's a whole story about that. There's a letter that I can show you about that. By the time the MPP government came into office in 2017, it was reported by KPMG that government owed Dr. Dufour's bank $1 billion United States dollars. Not million, not cedis, $1 billion United States dollars. I'll show you that letter. It's here. I'll show it to you. A letter written from KPMG to Charles Edu Boahen indicating to him that, Uncle Charles, you know something? The government owes Unibank $1 billion. So. And Charles wrote back and said he's verifying the figures. Dr. Dufour, as finance minister, with a bank that he privately owned, was able to lend money to contractors on behalf of government. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? You tell me. If he didn't have a bank, would he have been able to do that? Is it good to have had Dr. Dufour as Minister of Finance at the time? The data shows that it was, because single-digit inflation was achieved. So these are the kind of conversations. So if I sit on TV and I say that Dr. Dufour, and he's Minister of Finance, and he has a bank, and his children will come and say to my children that Papa and Bobra and Oye Kronfo. I mean, should you really be able to say that? Should anyone be able to say that? But anyway, let's move on. What's the next agenda? I was going to go to the United States and all that, but I won't go to the United States. We don't have much time for it. I was going to tell you examples of how in America people like that have come into government, but that's not important. I think the point is well made that as a country we need to now decide. Should we bring in people and say, once you become government, you cannot? Let's go to Singapore. Let's go to Singapore and see what Lee Kuan Yew did when he was confronted with this kind of situation. Now, this is Lee Kuan Yew writing in a book entitled From Third World to First World, the Singapore Story, 1965 to 2000. Okay, it goes as follows. He says, after several years in government, I realized that the more talented people I had as ministers, administrators, and professionals, the more effective my policies were and better the results. Did you hear that? Lee Kuan Yew said that after he had done several years in government, the realization did not come on him day one. It didn't come upon him day two. It came upon him after several years in government. He says, after several years in government, I realized that the more talented people I had as ministers, administrators, and professionals, the more effective my policies were and the better the results. With the founder generation of leaders, honesty had become a habit. My colleagues will spurn any attempts to suborn them. They had put their lives in jeopardy to achieve power, not to enrich themselves, but to change society. However, he says, this group could not be replicated because it was not possible to recreate the conditions that made them different. This is very loaded. Let me try and explain it. So the way I understand it. Now, Lee Kuan Yew says that his generation, they just came in that, look, we want the British out. End of story. So it's almost like the earlier Kenyan generation we're talking about, Jomo Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Kwame Nkrumah, William Ofori-Atta, J.B. Dankwa, people like Patrice Lumumba, the whole first generation, third world survivors fighting to decolonize Africa and decolonize Asia. Lee Kuan Yew belongs to that generation. He was saying that in their generation, they were able to put their lives in jeopardy to achieve power. And it was not about enriching themselves, to change society. He said that this group of people cannot be replicated because it is not possible to recreate those conditions that created Kwame Nkrumah. That's very interesting. The conditions that created Nkrumah to come abroad and say that I just want independence for Ghana, that's it. It's not possible to recreate. Let's move on and see what he says. Very interesting. He says, our successors have become ministers as one of many career options and not the most attractive one. If we underpay men of quality as ministers, we cannot expect them to stay long in office earning a fraction of what they could have earned outside. With high economic growth and higher earnings in the private sector, ministers' salaries have to match their private counterparts in the private sector. Underpaid ministers and public officials have ruined many governments in Asia. Adequate remuneration is vital for high standards of probity in political leaders and high officials. This is Lee Kuan Yew writing. First world to third world. And we've been saying that all the time. So your Minister of Energy, he's called Napo these days. Before then it was called somebody else. You pay him 12,000 cedis a month. You ask him to sign a contract for an oil company for 120 million. His signature will determine whether the oil company will make a profit of 60 million out of the 120. You pay him 12,000 a month. You don't connect his salary to the work that he's doing so that you can tell him that, Napo, if you're able to sign a lot of petroleum agreements so that we're exploring more oil and the exploration is successful and we think that you have done a good job, we will pay you 0.5% of whatever the company is getting. Until you do that with the energy minister, I'm telling you, you are a joker as a government. You are paying him 12,000 cedis a month. you give him a Land Cruiser. The lifestyle of a person who has a Land Cruiser doesn't earn 12,000 in the private sector. Those in the private sector who buy Land Cruisers, they don't earn 12,000. So you give him 12,000 a month, you give him a bungalow at Northridge, and then you give him a Land Cruiser, you are paying him 12,000. He's a member of parliament. He's signing a contract for ENI. These are the matters that as young people we need to discuss going forward. What do we do? And I'm bringing you the example of Lee Kuan Yew to see what he did. Otherwise, we'll keep having these conversations about people calling people Kronfor recklessly. It's reckless to just call somebody a Kronfor just like that. Not just a Kronfor, but you are calling his children foolish. What have they done? That their father is, so they are foolish. I mean, really? Okay, let's move on. And I like this point. He says, our successors have become ministers as one of the many career options. There are many career options for those people who are great and not the most attractive one. The government is not the most attractive one to them. If we underpay men of quality as ministers, we cannot expect them to stay long in office earning a fraction. Well, either they don't stay long in office or they might do something untoward in office. And he says that towards the end. He says, with high economic growth and higher earnings in private sector, ministers' salaries have to match their counterparts in the private sector. Underpaid ministers and public officials have ruined many governments in Asia. He calls it ruined, so I don't want to go into details what he means, but he says underpaid quality public officials have ruined governments in Asia. Let's see how he solved the problem. He said in a debate on the budget in March 1985, I took the opposition to task for opposing ministerial pay increase. J.B. Jeratham of the Workers' Party had contrasted my monthly salary of 29,000 United States dollars with that of the Prime Minister of Malaysia, who was earning $10,000 but only took 9,000. I went further to compare the salaries of Philippines President Marcos at 100, the equivalent is $1,000 a month, and the President of Indonesia, the equivalent of it is also 2,500. So Lee Kuan Yew, in 1985, as Prime Minister of Singapore, based on this principle, was earning 29,000 United States dollars. Lee Kuan Yew became one of the greatest leaders globally. When he wrote his book, the foreword was written by Henry Kissinger. Kissinger decided to write the foreword. If you know who Henry Kissinger is and what he means to the global security, intelligence, and economic situation, then you understand how Lee Kuan Yew became important. But in 1985, Lee Kuan Yew was probably the highest paid prime minister in the world at $29,000 because he made the point that if you want to attract people to Singapore to work, and you have to pay them well so that we know that we are paying them well. So when they say stop your company, stop your business, it's a decision we have to take. $29,000 in 1985. A lot of people watching me were not born. 1985. He was earning almost $30,000 as Prime Minister of Singapore. Yet, Singapore, in the anti-corruption situation, was said to be the country that was least corrupt. But their Prime Minister was earning $30,000. These are the conversations we need to have as we build a new Ghana. What kind of Ghana do we want? What kind of people do we want? How do we compensate them? What KKD has said brings up all of these conversations. So let's finalize on what Lee Kuan Yew said. He said, however, they were all wealthier than I was. Now, so he was saying that those people who were earning less than him, Philippines and all those people were earning 1,000, he was earning 20,000. He said they were wealthier than he is. And I'm sure it's true. Okay. An Indonesian leader retained his official residence. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let me come down here. My practice was to have all benefits expressed in a lump sum and let the Prime Minister and the ministers themselves decide what they want to do. After independence, I had frozen ministerial salaries and kept public wages increase at a low level. All right, I'll jump here. When they had no serious unemployment by 1970, etc., let me move on. I increased ministers' salaries from 2,500 to 4,500 per month, but kept mine at 3,000. This was much earlier than 1985. Let me go on. In 1978, now this is an interesting story Lee Kuan Yew tells in his book. In 1978, Dr. Tony Tan was general manager of the Overseas Chinese Banking Corporation, a big local bank on a salary scale that would have taken him to $950,000 per annum, almost $1 million. He said, I persuaded him to resign to become Minister of State, for which he was paid less than a third of his former salary. Apart from losing his specs, the most valuable of which was a car with a driver, Ong Teng Chong, the Minister for Communications, had also made a sacrifice by giving up a successful practice as an architect during the building room. When I was senior minister, I proposed to Parliament in 1994 that the government settle a formula so that revisions to salaries of ministers, judges, and top civil servants were automatic, linked with the income tax returns of the private sector. Do you get that? Lee Kuan Yew said, let us adjust salaries of ministers, judges, and top civil servants so that it is directly connected to the private sector. How will we know what the private sector has earned? The income tax they submit. So the private sector, that the income tax that private sector submit in banking, in law, and all that, tells the government that this is how much lawyers are earning. Let's pay our attorney general people the same, so that we can attract the best into government. It's a decision we have to take, and I'm submitting it. That's a decision we have to take. Okay, before the salary formula was implemented, top litigation lawyers were earning $1 to $2 million a year, while judges were paid less than $300,000. Without this change, we would never have been able to appoint some of our best practicing lawyers to the judiciary. We also had the salaries of doctors and professionals in government service linked to the incomes of their counterparts in the private sector. He said lawyers were earning $1 million a year, so I'll pay judges $300,000 a year. Should we pay judges the equivalent of what private sector lawyers are earning in Ghana so that we can attract private sector lawyers like Justice Kulendi, blessed be his name, then Amegache as well, to the Supreme Court? Should we do that? Are we going to call them Kronfor when that happens? So these are some of the points that we make. That takes us to the next stage. I'd like to spend some time now on the data bank story, so that we can answer this question. Before the data bank story comes, let me go back and play the narrative of the teaser again. This is KKD again speaking about my favorite part, the one he talks about what the children will say. And then we'll do the story of data bank, and let's make a determination whether there's a Kronfor here or there's no Kronfor here. Let's have a look at broadcast legend Kwesi Chedakwa.
And some people who we have put into positions of authority are raping the country. Why? Why? Sikahia Mubedi. You are leaving it for your children, and your children know you are doing this, and your children will come and tell other people's children that mo papa and mo bra, because you were stealing from the people. So those people whose parents did not steal from the people will be suffering, and your foolish children will come and tell those children mo papa and mo bra. They be one more papa in Yesika. What is this? And nobody wants to talk about it, because if you talk about it, they'll impoverish you. Hey, Masa, Obi Nkunwa, wow. And some people who we have put into positions of authority are raping the country. Why? Why? Sikahia Mubedi. You are leaving it for your children, and your children know you are doing this, and your children will come and tell other people's children that mo papa and mo bra, because you were stealing from the people. So those people whose parents did not steal from the people will be suffering, and your foolish children will come and tell those children mo papa and mo bra. They be one more papa in Yesika. What is this? And nobody wants to talk about it, because if you talk about it, they'll impoverish you. Hey, Masa, Obi Nkunwa, wow. And some people who we have put into positions of authority are raping the country. Why? Why? Sikahia Mubedi. You are leaving it for your children, and your children know you are doing this, and your children will come and tell other people's children that mo papa and mo bra, because you were stealing from the people. So those people whose parents did not steal from the people will be suffering, and your foolish children will come and tell those children mo papa and mo bra. They be one more papa in Yesika. What is this? And nobody wants to talk about it, because if you talk about it, they'll impoverish you. Hey, Masa, Obi Nkunwa, wow.
All right, so let's put out, this is an already published document. It's already available, and people could have found it and make a decision for themselves. I want to put out the story of DataBank here. And it says, celebrating 30 years of DataBank, of partnering with the Ghana Stock Exchange through leadership and excellence. DataBank was set up in 1990. That's the first slide. DataBank is launched by Ken Ofori-Atta, Kelly Gajepo, and James Akpo, as he then was, but now Togbe Afede as he now is, in a small room in UTC Motors building. That was 1990. They started with financial reporting publication, Euromoney, etc. And it says DataBank was ahead of its time in those days. Then in 91, they set up a brokerage division, which is brokerage division of DataBank. The group is launched. In 92, they brokered the first initial public offering IPO and listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That was Super Paper Products Company Limited. DataBank did that one. And then in 1994, Ghana Stock Exchange launches Zone Index through DataBank. The GSE All Share Index, which we talk about today, was launched by DataBank. Still in 94, they advised the government of Ghana during the liquidity crisis of Ashanti Goldfields Company Limited. So you see that 1994, a lot of you were not born. 1994, DataBank advised the government of Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, J.J. Rawlings' government. DataBank advised them on the liquidity crisis for Ashanti Goldfields Company Limited. And then there is also introducing emerging market funds to Ghana through restructuring, etc. And then in 1995, facilitation. It's too long. We can go through. Let's go to the next page quickly, and then let's come to 2004. It continues. 2005, 2008, 2009, 10, 12, 14. Plenty things DataBank have done. 2018, co-sponsoring the broker dealer for the additional 300 million. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 2021, DataBank is still working. So, what are we really saying? What are we really saying? So, this is DataBank, and that they give us the they give us this. This is the final part of it, where I'm talking about what DataBank are, because this whole conversation about Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is using the DataBank story to using DataBank to enrich himself and all of that. Yes, this is the DataBank story. Can we really look at a story like this and talk about Chrome 4? Can we really do that? I'm not sure we can do that. This is a document that's already published. This is a document that is available. This is the work that DataBank have done. The criteria for selecting people is known. Whether it's good or it's bad, for a finance minister's company to be doing this kind of work is a decision for us to take. But I believe tonight we have understood what happens. And each of us, if we want to be fair, put yourselves in the shoes of Ken Ofori-Atta. Put yourself in the shoes of the hypothetical case I gave about Togbe Afede becoming finance minister. Put yourself in the shoes about the hypothetical case about Edward Defa becoming finance minister or governor of the Bank of Ghana. Put yourself in those shoes. Think about what you would do. And then compare it to the narrative of a friend of yours, a distinguished broadcaster, goes on TV and says that Chrome 4. I mean, is that really a story of Chrome 4? I mean, I love KKD to bits. Everyone knows that, because he's my man. And this is nothing against what he said. What he said is a narrative that we should discuss. But these are the facts. And what Kwesi said is not new. Other people have been saying it. And I've seen it on social media, and Ofori-Atta this and that and that. All that is fine. It's not that he's wrong or that he's right. This is the fact. So put yourself in the shoes of the man. What would you do? And what would I do? It's a decision for us to take, because the country belongs to all of us. Once he's doing his private sector work, that's him. But once he gets to the country, it belongs to all of us. You heard Lee Kuan Yew. How do you attract people to work in the government sector? How do you go about it? So I hope the text messages are coming. I'm going to look at all of them, and then we see how. But for KKD in particular, people were quite surprised that he said that we're in the because they said he's close friends with the president's secretary, who also used to be with DataBank. And so people were asking that, but Kwesi could have just found the information from Nana Asante Bediatu. This is a photograph. I don't say much about this, but this is a photograph of the president's secretary to the right with a police car behind them, a police car, and KKD to the left. And many people are posting this photograph on social media and asking that, is there a broken down relationship between the two men or so? Because Kwesi Cheida-Kwa is Nana Asante Bediatu's friend. Nana Asante Bediatu is secretary to the president. It doesn't mean that Kwesi should not criticize Asante Bediatu's government. He can. He should criticize. I mean, many people who are friends with Akufo-Addo criticize. In fact, some of Akufo-Addo's critics are his closest friends. And I believe some of John Mohammed's critics were his closest friends. Except that they will not criticize publicly, they will criticize internally. Okay, so people are wondering what has happened. Because, as I said, I won't say much about this. This is the legendary KKD. This is the stylish secretary to the president. That's a police car behind them, and they took a photograph on that. So people have been asking me this question. In fact, even people in America are asking me, what has happened? I've seen KKD's video. What is going on? But he could have sorted out these things and found out from Bedi to what it was and that. Anyway, but this is the story. So I am moving to the next narrative, which is about the laws. The point we've been talking about all the time. Before then, though, I'll take the text messages. And I will also take the people who are doing the program. Before then, I'll take the text messages. But I'm going to discuss tonight the suggestion that we cannot hope to live under good men. We just can live under good laws. I'll give you an example, two graphic examples, one from 1960 and one from 2000 and one from Fourth Republic. One from First Republic and one from Fourth Republic, to show you that it is important for us to structure our laws well. And it brings me back to the question about what media houses do and don't do and shouldn't do. We are not interested in micro-catching people who are evil. We must set up the superstructure well. That's the only thing that I agree with my friend Vomaho on. The superstructure must be dealt with. We must deal with the superstructure. What do the laws permit? What should we allow the laws to permit? The other day, Dr. Bafo said on television that the Constitution has too much powers for a good president. He doesn't need it. But it has too much powers for a bad president who might exploit it. And human beings are not good in themselves and bad in themselves. We are all good and bad. Black and white, yellow and blue. That's how we all are. Because we, as Maslow said, self-preservation is with everyone. It's the first thing, as Maslow said. Self-preservation is first. So everyone does self-preservation. That sometimes makes us bad people, doesn't it? It does. So when we are building a country, we are building laws. We are not finding good men, and we are not shaming bad men. We build the laws. After we come from the break of the text message, I'll show you what I mean by laws are good. The laws must rule, not good men. We should never focus on that. If I have more time, I'll come and talk about how media houses should be thinking about this constitutional amendments and suggesting the amendments that they have, because we already have our amendments here. I may share it with you. It's 10:30 right now. I didn't know. Sorry, my cough. I didn't know that this would take me an hour, but it has. Let me go to the text messages. And don't go away. I'll be coming to the constitutional amendment. But let me go to text messages, see what people are saying about this story. Okay, so social media editors, what do you have? Matilda?
From Sir Bob, the Citizen. Good evening, Apostle Paul. We know you do justice to this KKD issue once and for all. Watching you live from Amasaman. From Gideon Akume, what he said is the outright truth. Arise, Ghana youth, for your country. These old folks mean no good for our country. From Francis Telfa, Paul, your program is the most educative TV show in Ghana at the moment. Keep doing what you do best. We love you. Also from Atta Bernard, Paul, please, we don't need long analogies and comparisons this time. Is what he's saying true? Is Data Bank benefiting from all the loan transactions? Is it not a clear issue of conflict of interest? We shouldn't always defend our people because they are our own thieves. From Chamba Kajira, Paul, thanks for deep explanations. KKD should bow his head in shame for feeding the public with false information about Ken Atta, the finance minister. And also, somebody said, don't mind Kwesi, he wants to be relevant after his rape case. From Akison Dibaba Taylor, Mr. Paul, you are a genius. It is a fact that Data Bank has built a brand for themselves over the years with or without Ken Ofori-Atta. So the NDC should know better. Mr. Paul, I wish all the journalists in Ghana would just humbly take you as their mentor so you teach them how real impactful journalism is done. Thanks for your classic works. And finally, from Francis Agbodeka, Poadum Ochre, do you know how the ministers of Singapore work so hard to make their country what it is now and have moved it from third world to first? What are our own ministers here doing?
I love the arguments of the payments of political and public leaders. This is the major strategy to deal with corruption in public services and attract brilliant minds into the public service. Also coming from Quest Emmanuel, why skip the part where he forced salary increases while the economy struggled and unemployment was high? The PM's point was that he was paid well and did not steal. Here leaders have high salary and allowances and still steal millions of dollars. What is Paul talking about? We are not talking about monies politicians earn legally. We are talking about money stolen directly and indirectly. Also coming from Charles Tomiti. Can't we be proud that we have Ghanaian expert banks helping us? So we are not worried about foreign banks, but worried about Ghana banks. What a country. Also coming from Ahmad Junior Tabika. Very educative, but just as he showed us the criteria for selection and how Data Bank qualified for the job in 2014, please do same to prove they really qualify for subsequent years too, sorry. Also coming from Wellspring School. Paul, the continuous engagement of Data Bank by the Finance Minister poses an issue of conflict of interest. Secondly, the fact that Data Bank ceases to provide such services to the government does not necessarily mean the company must fold up or will fold up. No one has asked any company to close down. You have made a good presentation. However, your appreciation of conflicts of interest is problematic. Also coming from Kwame Opoku Kwarteng, Ken should have declined the appointment as finance minister. Simple. NDP claims to have the man. Why limit the role to Ken? In politics, we know optics play a huge part. Also coming from Atta Bernard, Paul, I disagree with you on this. What then is conflicts of interest? There are credible institutions in Ghana who can do same instead of Data Bank. Very disappointing. Also coming from Daniel Wakan, Paul, I think he shouldn't stop work but must recourse his institution from that bid. Why was his company not fit for the period from 2012 but only comes in when his government is in power? It is obvious politicians will take advantage of our situation of borrowing to gain money into their institutions. Also coming from Al-Hassan Idusu, Taboka, why not show the score of 2017 to 2021? I sometimes don't understand how issues are judged. There's no one side to a coin. Also from Ahmed Junior Tabika, very educative, but just as you showed us the criteria for selection and how Data Bank qualified for the job in 2012, please do same to prove they really qualify for subsequent years. And lastly, from Nana Kofi Ajiakwa. Paul, no one is saying Data Bank isn't competent enough to perform that function. What we are talking about is the fact that Ken is the finance minister and his company is benefiting directly from a transaction he presides over. That's conflict of interest. It's just like a judge presiding over a case involving his son.
So Kofi A. Adams says, no one is saying Data Bank is not credible, but the subject here is about conflict of interest. Ghana is in debt crisis. Is because we have borrowed more, and it's possible because we benefit directly from borrowing. Are you telling us that if Ghana doesn't borrow money, Data Bank will close down? What kind of infantile analysis is this? And this one is from Philip Adeyemi. He says, I love your argument on the payment of political and public leaders. This is the major strategy to deal with corruptions in public services and attract brilliant minds into the public service. And then David Kankam Buedu says, Paul, I agree with you 100%. It must be the Ghana's government's policy to create millionaires who will in turn create jobs to help control unemployment in the country. And then Jaffa King says, Paul, you are intellectually unmatched. I'm in love with your presentations. Keep setting the standard high. Nana Yao Chilling says, Paul Adom Orchary, we are not against your business or want to stop them from working, but within the context of corporate governance, it cannot be entertained. However, as you rightly pointed out, there are other companies that were on the list with provided who can equally do a good job. Okay, lastly from Philip Wright, he says, the devil always lies in details. Paul Adom Orchard doing the Lord's work on Good Evening Ghana, Metro TV.
Kamal Amasaman Broni says, Paul, I agree with KKD to some extent, but I think his new position should have made him to choose some of his words carefully rather than going ballistic to express his opinions instead of euphemistically doing so. From Alexander Sefa, he says, per KKD's logic, Ken Ofori-Atta is caught in the web of conflict of interest with respect to his relationship with Data Bank as a shareholder and not as a management member. Some who have been in business with past governments since 2014 is now accused of setting up a business to rip off the country. If he believes there is a conflict of interest, why doesn't he petition Straj or any other body to delve into matters to establish whether there was a breach of the law? We shouldn't be too quick to judge others based on our own decisions without looking at the evidence. And Felix Boama, watching us from Mount Mampong says, why do we have a problem as a people when a local company makes money from the government, but are okay when foreign companies make money from the government? Paul, this presentation has been an eye-opener. I actually support your thoughts of building a system that will work better for Ghana and stop praising individuals. This from Daniel Akanyi Nindipo. He says, this analysis is internationally reputable. It is the NDC that is trying to incite Ghanaians against the finance minister concerning his company. But is it not surprising that the same company that qualified under the erstwhile administration is now being bastardized even though the company meets the criteria? And Raouf says, I think we need to have a full-scale discussion on what we Ghanaians understand by conflict of interest and its related impact on our country's development. We should let KKD understand that a business is a legal entity and thus separate from the owner or owners. I agree we as a country, we should look at conflict of interest and competitive edge of companies that should be hired. And Abdul Latif Ajay says, you are just awesome with the science and data analysis. Most of us are dyslexic and are too quick to judge with impunity. I think information such as this should be made public prior to the selection and execution. The way and manner we do these things raises lots of suspicion. Recordman says, good evening, Paul. Ofurata's issue is quite similar to Ibrahim Mahama's case. Ibrahim Mahama won lots of contracts under President Kufuor, but Ghanaians started ranting immediately Ibrahim Mahama started winning contracts under President Mahama. Ghanaians are naturally born bitter. All they need is the least opportunity to prove it. Edward Osai says, good evening, Mr. Paul. Please, what's the page number you're reading in Lee's book? I have the book and I'd like to continue from where you ended. This is very fascinating.
Hold on, let me get that page. This is a Lee Kuan Yew book, isn't it? I think it's... okay, so it's here. I think it's... so page 165... is where I picked up the story of what they did after independence, and it's under the title Keeping the Government Clean. So there are three titles from which I drew this analysis. So it begins with the chapter. Sorry, just a minute, I'll get it for you. Okay, so here it is. All right, so the first chapter in there is Nurturing and Attracting Talent. It's the 10th chapter and it's on page 135 of Lee Kuan Yew's book. And then the other chapters that I worked on is this other one. It's entitled Lessons from Japan is there. East Asia in Crisis, that's on page 343. And you have In Search of Space, Regional and International. These are the topics that I drew from, but it's a book that is, it's a big book, isn't it? How many pages? Lee Kuan Yew's book is 700 or so pages. Yeah. Okay, so on conflict of interest, which is what some of our people have been asking, I'd like to say that conflict of interest is obvious. When I say it's obvious, I mean it's understood what conflict of interest, when one is benefiting from, etc. But this Eurobond and the borrowing thing, a Minister of Finance borrows with the permission of Parliament. He cannot go and commit Ghana to borrowing by himself. I think we must understand that. So when they say anytime Ghana borrows, he makes money, so he wants to go and borrow, he cannot just decide to go and borrow. He doesn't do that. So he goes to Parliament and explains to Parliament why I have to borrow. And Parliament can agree or disagree with it. That's why to some extent I keep saying I like KKD referring this to Parliament. But ministers of finance don't just decide to go and borrow on their own. So we think that he's sleeping there in his house and in the next morning he thinks that, okay, I want Data Bank to make money, so let's go and borrow. Where is my deputy Charles? Let's go to Europe and go and borrow. No, that's not how it works. It doesn't work like that. But a country's affairs is a very serious matter. So it doesn't work simply like that. People are not able to take decisions on their own. Okay, all right, so cool. Yeah, I think that question is answered. Now we have too much to do. We may still have to push our political conversation to next studio, because I want to publish The Young Man who is in the studio, and we have 20 minutes more, isn't it? Even with what we have left, I'm not sure whether 20 minutes will be able to be exhaustive. Okay, so I've already skipped one. Let me come to the other one. This is very important to me. When we talk about laws and how we should create laws, realign our constitution, amend our constitution, look into the constitution and see which areas will help us. Which areas will help us to develop ourselves properly. This is what we mean. I'm going to give you two examples. And I'm suggesting that because human beings are who we are, when human beings with power get into a certain situation, they like to exercise their power in a certain way. Maslow said that, so we all know that. The only thing that prevents human beings from exercising that power is the law. So I'm going to give you two presidents of Ghana. President Nkrumah and fourth Republican president. You can call it Kufuor, Rawlings, Akufo-Addo, Mahama, Mills, each of them. The powers that were available to Nkrumah and the powers that are available to them and how it was used. Okay, let me quickly go to the touch screen. So this, the 1960 Constitution, okay? It says the judges of the, and I'm talking about Supreme Court judges. So Kwame Nkrumah sacked Supreme Court judges. Yeah, he did. He sacked several Supreme Court judges when he disagreed with them. President Kufuor didn't sack Supreme Court judges, but he complained about judgment. J.J. Rawlings did not sack Supreme Court judges, but he complained about the judgments. You know, other presidents have complained about judgments in the Fourth Republic. The point I'm making here is that Nkrumah didn't sack judges because he was a bad man. That's not the reason why he sacked them. He sacked them because he wanted to sack them. Kufuor did not refuse to sack judges because he's a good man. It is because he couldn't do it. The law did not allow President Rawlings to sack judges. If you heard President Rawlings, I've been looking for the video, we didn't find it, but I'll find it and show it to you. If you heard President Rawlings berating judges at the El-Wak Stadium after the ruling in 31st December, where they said that 31st December cannot be celebrated as a public holiday, if you heard the things Rawlings said at the El-Wak Stadium that day, and even Dr. Kwesi Boatwell, I always continue to tease him with that. Dr. Kwesi Boatwell came and said that today is a working holiday because the Supreme Court has declared illegal the holiday of 31st December. Dr. Boatwell said, today is a working holiday. He stood in front of the microphone. JJ was standing behind. JJ was wearing camouflage with Akafia and Quino and all of that. So Kwesi Boatwell was asked to address the soldiers, and he said, today is a working holiday. When the Supreme Court had outlawed the holiday, JJ was brutally angry, and he even spoke at the sessional address of 1994 about it. Few days later. So if JJ could sack judges, I bet you he would have fired those judges who gave the ruling same way as Nkrumah did. So Nkrumah did not fire the judges because he's bad. He fired the judges because of the laxity in the law that allowed him to do that. I'm going to show you what the law said. Okay. 1960 Constitution. The judges of the Superior Court shall be appointed by the President by instrument under public seal. Okay, 3. Subject to the following provisions of this article, no person shall be removed from office as a judge of the Supreme Court or as a judge of the High Court except by the President. This 1960, this is what the law said. Bad law, not bad people, not bad president, not good president, bad law. So let's build our laws to be good laws, and bad men will fall in line. Let's not look for good men in government. They are not available. They are not. There's nobody, and they are in the where they keep the Catholic cardinals. What they call it, Vatican. The Vatican. That's where the good men are. There are only 7 of them. There's 7 cardinals. There are only good men in the world. That's all. There are no good men and no bad men. There are bad laws and good laws. There are bad societies that are run by bad laws, and there are great societies that are run by great men. It's not the men, it is the law. So when we are doing that's why I always come back to this hiding camera and catching somebody. It's micro, it will not change. You will catch them and there will be a new one. You catch this, there will be a new one. So let's build the laws. Media people and leading journalists must begin to think about the amendments to the laws of our country and see which way. That's the service we can render to our people as journalists. It's not to go and find out who is a thief. Everybody is a thief, and everybody is not a thief. Who is a thief and who is not a thief? It is the law. Look at the 1960 Constitution of this same Ghana, saying that the president can sack judges, except that they give a criteria by which he does it, pursuant something. It says the removal of office of the judges, except by the president. The president, he can sack judges. Today it's not in the law. If this was the 1992 Constitution, J.J. Rawlings would have fired those judges. When the court ruled against President Kufuor in the famous Chachuchi Kata fast track case, you saw how angry he was that he actually appointed a new judge. President Kufuor was very distraught. I bet you, if the 1992 Constitution has said a High Court judge cannot be sacked except by the president, President Kufuor would have fired those judges. But the law did not allow him to fire them. So if you put he and Nkrumah side by side, do you say Nkrumah is bad and he is good? No. Nkrumah had bad laws. Kufuor had better laws. Rawlings had better laws. Mills had better laws. The Fourth Republican Constitution, the provisions thereof relating to the protection of judges is better than the 1960 Constitution. That's really what we have. That's really what we have. So look at the law. Quick, what do I do next? So these are the first victims of Nkrumah exploiting the law. When the people said, Nkrumah said that the Terry Adamafio and co had tried to overthrow my government, and so the Attorney General charged them for treason. Akwaje, the Interior Minister, was included. Take them to court and put them in prison. And these three judges said, sorry, Mr. President, sorry, Mr. Prosecutor. The evidence does not back the fact that they were staging a coup. We cannot find evidence against them for treason. And so we will let them go. The president got furious. And he went into the Constitution and he saw the Constitution said, judges may not be sacked except by the president. He said, bingo, sack them. And they sacked all of them. And guess what? The president then mobilized his people, the CPP, and then they went on demonstration. I'll show you the video. They went on demonstration, jubilating and said, Aku Kosa is a traitor. Edward Akufo-Addo is a traitor. It's good the president sacked them. That's what they said. They'll show you the video. Let the video play. This is the video of the of somewhere in Accra in 1960 with the crowd. There they are, most of them CPP supporters, celebrating the dismissal by the president of 3 High Court judges. And they were saying they demand justice. That's a nice Ghanaian guy over there. And they said the party is supreme. The CPP party says Kosa is a traitor. Kosa was the Chief Justice, the same person who conducted the swearing of Dr. Nkrumah. They said he's a traitor and that Osagyefo never dies. And this is the kind of thing they said. Beautiful Ghanaians in 1960 demonstrating in support of the president using arbitrary powers to sack judges. And I'm saying that society, that Ghanaian society, lived under bad laws. They were not bad people. Dr. Nkrumah was not a bad person. The laws were bad. So let's shift quickly to the 1992 Constitution. Okay, so these are the other judges. You gave me something, the amendment. Okay, so some people complained that yes, the president can sack the judges, yes, but he should do it through a certain procedure. They complained to Nkrumah that, Dr. Nkrumah, you cannot do that. You can sack judges, but there's a laid-down procedure. You didn't obey the procedure. What's the procedure? The procedure was that Parliament will vote by 2/3 majority to agree with the president. The president didn't even take it to Parliament. He just fired them. So the president saw that perhaps there was something wrong that he did not obey in the law. So he did an amendment to the law. 1964, Constitution is changed. Look at the new provision. Article 45 of the Constitution is hereby amended as follows. In section 1 thereof, by substitution of the word superior court with the following words, Supreme Court or as a judge of the High Court. B, in section 3 thereof, by the insertion with the following provision, proviso, provided that the president may be at any time, provided that the president may at any time, for the reasons which to him sufficient, to him that are sufficient to remove from office a judge. So Nkrumah amended the law that says that the president will do this through Parliament and change it and say that no, it is only, he will do it if the reasons are sufficient to the president that the judge must be removed. So the 1964 amendment to the 1960 Constitution then gave the president more powers to remove judges. Bad law. Not bad president, bad law. Let's see the 1992 one. So these were the other judges who were removed. That is Duma Bosman, whose grandson is now Deputy Chief of Staff, Robert Samuel Blay, Justice Henry Kwesi Prempeh, all of them. Okay, now let's come to 1992 Constitution. So we learned our lesson. And we made good laws in 1992, okay? That's the same thing I'm saying. Let's learn our lessons. Let's take the 1992 Constitution and make it better by amending certain parts of it. Now, here is the 1992 one. The one that makes us think that President Kufuor is a good man, President Rawlings is a good man, Professor Mills is a good man, and Akufo-Addo is a good man. No, it is not good men. The laws are better. The laws that protect the independence of judges are better today than they were before. It's not that the men are good or that the women are bad. No, it's the laws. Let's look at it. A justice of the Superior Court or a chairman of a regional tribunal shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior or incompetence or on ground of inability to perform the functions of his office arising from infirmity of body or mind. 2, a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature or a chairman of the regional tribunal may only be removed in accordance with the procedure specified in this article. 3, if the president receives a petition for the removal of a justice of the Superior Court other than the Chief Justice or for the removal of a chairman of a regional tribunal, he shall refer the petition to the Chief Justice, who shall determine whether there is a prima facie case being made. So in 1992, the president is not part of the process of removing judges. He must receive a petition, and he must send the petition to somebody else. He does not participate in it. So no matter how angry Flight Lieutenant Rawlings was with the 31st December ruling, he can't do anything about it. No matter how angry President Kufuor was with the fast-track ruling, he cannot do anything about it. No matter how angry Nana Akufo-Addo may be with any ruling that comes from the Supreme Court, he cannot sack any judge. He cannot sack any judge. That is the good law. I'll build on this later on because we are doing nation building, aren't we? We need to really deal with this issue of what articles should we amend in the Constitution to give us the society we are looking for. Let's not be catching. We will catch La Bianca, catch this one. We will be catching forever. The fundamental thing to do is to go to the laws. Let our media focus on that a little bit. And let's see how we get civil society. Let's see civil society presenting a list of constitutional amendments. Why? 10 years ago, Professor Mills did a Constitution Review Committee. And at that time, Professor Mills felt that we need to amend this Constitution. We felt that the powers of the president are excessive, and it will always create a dictator. The other day, Mr. Chikata was speaking somewhere at the Professor Mills event and said that I think his attention has been drawn to the things we've been saying, that the 1992 Constitution was tailor-made for Rawlings, and he denied it. But he cannot deny it. Mr. Chikata and Mr. Kwame Nahoy cannot deny that they fashioned the 1992 Constitution for JJ to make him comfortable to continue with his dictatorship. That's why we have the 1992 Constitution. We have the 1992 Constitution because Flight Lieutenant Rawlings needed to be made comfortable as a cool leader transitioning into the democracy. But Professor Bafo Adjumandua has said this. Jima Buedi has said this. Professor Michael Kwe has said it. I don't think they are all wrong. And when you look at the facts of the Constitution, it won't take you long to see that this Constitution has been fashioned and designed for a dictator. You see it. It's very obvious. And I like the fact that Mr. Chikata has responded to it. But it's a conversation we need to continue with. He has to say more than just say that, oh, it's not true that the Constitution was made for Rawlings. No, we say it's true, and we are not just saying it's true. We are saying that because of the articles and the content of the Constitution. Article 57, 58, 59. If you look at that, it's designed for a dictator. It is. Everybody who studied political science in those days, both Professor Achuai, who is not MPP, and Professor Michael Kwe, who is MPP, they all asked the question, discussed the view that the 1992 Constitution was tailor-made for Rawlings. Every year it comes in politics in Ghana. Discussed the view that the 1960 Constitution was tailor-made for Nkrumah. Every year is there. There's no question that says, discuss the view that 1979 Constitution was made for Lehman. We never encountered that question. But these two questions, discuss the view that 1990 Constitution was tailor-made for Rawlings, and discuss the view that the 1960 Constitution was tailor-made for Nkrumah, is always there. I think that Mr. Chikata and Mr. Ahoy must give us more information about that, because this Constitution, they designed it for Rawlings. Maybe it was useful at the time. Maybe it was good at the time to give us the stability from the coup time. But today, it is not useful. It is hurting our democracy, it's drawing us back, and we may be in trouble some time to come. Okay, so I think I'll leave this here. I'm being urged to take a commercial break. After the commercial break, we will go to the desk and talk to our young man. But let's do social media first. Do you have messages right now that you can read? Let's take 2 each. Let's hear you then. Christabel first.
But he says, but seriously, Data Bank has been doing this work since NDC time. Opposition is just taking advantage of current economic situations to incite Ghanaians against this government. Naturally, Ghanaians are better people, and I guess the opposition is using it against this government. And lastly, from Michael Williams, Paul, you are missing the whole point. Data Bank should not be bidding for these transactions when Ken Ofori-Atta is finance minister. It is simply not done. This is a classic case of conflict of interest. Their participation in the past is immaterial.
Okay, from Edu Jane Prince, Paul, the apostle of our media space. Thanks a lot for the succinct exposition on this matter. I think what a lot of Ghanaians lack is credible and factual information. And as a youth, I would want to know the background of all that goes on in the media, because it feels like many headlines are only sensational, the usual I catch you. And also from Suhi Imran Al-Hassan, keep it up, Paul, your appointment was really a well-deserved one.
Eric Kufuor Seidu says, good society are run by good laws and bad society are run by bad laws. It's not about the men, but about laws put in place. Paul, this is very deep and applaudable. And then this one is from Raymond. He says, good evening, Paul. You have just made this propaganda story simple for all of us. God bless you. You are one of the best. You are one of the best teachers in Ghana. Keep on teaching the ignorance on what they should know. Watching you live from
the commercial break. Break since we started. Let's take the commercial break. We have 2 breaks now, so we'll take one, and then we'll come back to the studio.
Madam Hisense, wake up. I come. Now wait, swear. I come, pa. Madam Hisense, I'm air away. Air fryer doesn't come. Now blender is swear. Blender doesn't come.
Because you won't pump, but I come.
I come. I feel way dear asso. A Hisense Factory Direct promo. Factory Direct promo no stress. Hisense showroom baby. And you may open na. Saturday turn no. Sana ye turn no. Everything 29th August. I come 8th September. I'm on them for home.
Watch no fear no shop me. Saji neke ni ko no e. Sanojo.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Praise God. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like praying and giving and so on. Hallelujah. Christianity is the outworking of God's own kind of life